Good afternoon, good morning, and perhaps even good evening, everyone. Have you heard the rumor of a silent, white-sailed ship appearing out of the Antarctic mist like a phantom, a ghost ship of some sort? And I have to be honest with you, standing on deck at 3 in the middle of the night in the Drake Passage, when the only sound is the waves crashing against the hull, the creaks of the wooden decks, and the wind whistling through the rigging, it does feel a bit supernatural. Especially when we arrive in Antarctica and the only thing you see is the mist around you. Hearing the chatter of penguins in the distance and the glaciers calving, asking yourself, what will the white continent reveal for us? But the truth is even much more exciting than a ghost story. What people are seeing isn't a ghost. It's more a time traveler. In a world of high-speed engines and fast-paced travel, Bark Europa is a living, breathing piece of history. We aren't haunting these waters, we're honoring them, taking our time to cross the Drake and explore the continent of Antarctica. And to keep that history alive, we operate in a way that is quite rare today. Bark Europa is run in a non-profit kind of way. We aren't government funded or a corporate giant. We are a small, dedicated team, and everything we earn is reinvested directly in the ship's maintenance and operations. We do this simply because we love this old lady and believe in the importance of sharing the magic of the open sea with guests like you. And today, we're going to show you what it's actually like to be on that ghost ship. We want to show you how your voyage would look like and what your time on Europa would be. So thank you so much for tuning in for the Bark Europa webinar. In the sign-up list, we saw some familiar names of those who have already booked, but also many new names. So welcome, everyone. Our goal today is to give you a better idea of what sailing on board Bark Europa is like, what to expect from the Antarctic experience, and how to prepare for your trip, whether that's the upcoming season or in the years to follow. My name is Nina, and I'm the General Manager of the Bark Europa office. And together with a team of 7, we manage all operations, including crew planning, orders, marketing, permits, sales. And Pilou and Lucky, who are now behind the scenes today gathering your questions with a few of our other colleagues, are the ones who will be most in contact with you before you book, during your time of preparation, and after your voyage. And joining me today are 2 of my esteemed colleagues who will join you on board, both with years of experience in Antarctica. Janke, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody, nice to meet you. My name is Janke Kingma. I'm one of the captains of Europa and been sailing on board since 2016.
Beth?
Hi folks, how y'all doing? I'm Beth and I am one of the expedition leaders on board. And I have also been sailing on board since 2016, actually. Yeah. So many trips down to Antarctica. Yeah.
Nice. All right. Today, we would like to guide you through 3 main topics. First, our ship, Bark Europa, her history, the routes we sail, and life on board. The second, the Antarctic experience. What do we actually do there in Antarctica? And third, logistics, how to get yourself on board. And at the end of the presentation, we'll have a Q&A. And in case you have any questions, please use the chat and we'll gather your questions. This meeting will be recorded and will be shared with you afterwards, alongside any questions that may not have been answered yet. So let's begin. Janke, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So yeah, after we set our highs, I would really like to introduce our beautiful lady, Europa, which she's built in 1911, but not by the name Europa. She was built by the name of Senator Brox and built in Hamburg. When they built her, she was built as a light ship, which means throughout most part of her life, she carried like a lighthouse on board. And at the same time, she was also used as a sleepover station for the pilots while being at anchor in the River Elbe. One of the advantages that we have now for sailing with her to Antarctica is that back then, in a century ago, the conditions in the Elbe were a little bit different as from today. So there was way more ice. So what did the builders do? They built her very thick. And every time we sail to Antarctica, that's one of the things that feels really nice, to be on such a strong, sturdy sailing ship. The era of the lightships ended somewhere in the 1970s, and in the picture here you can see what she was looking back then. But they didn't need her anymore, so the Germans put her up somewhere in Hamburg alongside, and that was the place where Harry Smith found her. Harry Smith is a boat owner from the Netherlands, or a ship owner, and he rebuilt a couple of other vessels already. But when he looked at the lines of the lightship, he realized that that would be the perfect line for a sturdy sailing ship. And so he took the ship to Amsterdam, and in the pictures you can see here, they rebuilt her. It took quite some years, because from engine room, there previously were no engines in, from engine rooms, all the electricity, all the piping, accommodation, everything had to be put in like what it is today. They took a lot of time, 8 years since till 94. And in 94, they started sailing with her the way she looks on the picture you see. This beautiful picture with the stun sails. In the first 6 years, they stayed a little bit closer to home with the ship. So they mainly sailed in Northwest Europe and did some crossings over the North Atlantic Ocean. But then further horizons got more and more attractive. And in the end, by now, Europa circled around the world quite a bit. And as you can see, and you know probably, even makes it for already over 25 years to Antarctica. A couple of small details. As I said before, the ship is built for the ocean. The ship is built to resist quite some weather. Her home port is in the Netherlands, Scheveningen or The Hague. The length overall, so from the stern all the way out to the bowsprit, is 56 meters. On deck, it's 45. The width, so how wide is the ship, is 7.4 meters. The draft, so how deep does she go underwater, is almost 4. The height from water level all the way up, if you would climb the mast, is 33 meters. And then we have about 1,250 square meters of sail. We don't always use that when we go to Antarctica because we want to keep it on the safe side, but we could if we wanted to. And of course, like a modern day ship, we have 2 beautiful Caterpillar engines that move us forward when we can't sail. Then you got to know the ship a little bit, but how can we move the ship from A to B? I can't do that on my own. So we have a lot of permanent crew and we rotate throughout the year. We rotate through voyages, but almost on every voyage or on every voyage, we have at least a captain and 1 mate. Sometimes we sail with 2 mates. Then we have engineer. Engineer does engineering things, maintaining all the equipment and all that kind of stuff. We have a bosun. The bosun is basically the leader of the deckhands, the people that work on the deck, but the bosun also is going to be taking a bit of the lead in teaching you how to sail and how to deal with everything that's going on ship. The deckhands assist the bosun. They will explain a lot. They will tell you how to set the sails, how to move on deck, how to climb a loft. But also they do a lot of cleaning. They drive zodiacs. They bake the bread. So they're, yeah, everybody's important on board, but the deckhands definitely are really important. Then we have the guides. You already met. She's the expedition leader. Usually we have 2 more guides, and they will tell you everything they know about Antarctica and show you all the beautiful places that they can think of. Then the people that are maybe the most important on board, that's the galley team. Because as you all understand, without good food, nobody can sail anywhere. And also the bar team, yeah, that's that's not for everybody, but for most people, it's also quite important. And last but not least, the person that we always wish has the least work on board, and that's the doctor. But on every expedition, we carry a doctor on board because you never know what happens. And then we saw the permanent crew, which usually on board consists 50-50 women, men. I want to say that because then you get an idea. They're from very many different nationalities, as is the voyage crew. And who is the voyage crew? Well, I hope in a future time you will be our voyage crew. That will be very nice. We can take up to 42 guests that sign up for a trip. And who are you guys all together? Well, usually the voyage crew consists of, it's very international. Lots of people from many different countries, from many different continents. And they can be solo travelers. They can come in couples, and sometimes we even have a whole family, for example, or a group of friends or a group of scientists. So we have very different people on board. Also, the ages vary between approximately 15 to 72. And the people are a mixture of people that have been sailing before, have never been sailing before. Some always wanted to sail. Some just recently figured it out. Some are more only interested in Antarctica, but it's nice to go for the full adventure expedition and go therefore on a sailing ship. So basically, whatever you are, you're welcome to come along. What is good to know is that the language on board is English. So sometimes you can speak your own language, of course, if it's a different one. But if we communicate with all of us to keep everybody involved, we stick to the English. Yeah, and a shared passion is that everybody's looking for some adventure. Then you might be curious to know, yeah, where will I end up? Where will I sleep? Here you see a picture of a 6-person cabin. We have 2-person, 4-person, and 6-person cabins. All are so basically shared. We don't have 1-person cabins. And you got to keep in mind a bit that if you join, the ship is big enough for all the people, but there's a lot of shared space. So you have your own bunk, of course, with sheets and towels and everything provided. And if you want to have some time where you really don't want to see anybody, you'll have to close the curtains, or sometimes on deck find a small space, or sometimes below there's small spaces where there's nobody else. But yeah, the cabins are shared. Then every cabin has a bathroom and a toilet. And I have to add, for Antarctic expeditions, we also have floor heating. So that's nice on the feet, in case you might wonder. And of course, some people ask that since we're a European ship, we use the European plugs for electricity. So if you're from a different continent, a different country, you might want to bring an adapter. Usually we sail with very nice people and it all goes really smooth to share a cabin. Also because you have different watches, we'll get to that. and you won't be all the time in the cabins together. We have more spaces on board than only the cabins. That's quite logic because you also have to live. And here's a small view. The left upper picture is the library where you can chill out, as the picture shows. There's books on Antarctica. You can just sit, you can use your laptop, you can do whatever. Not make too much noise. We have more other areas on the ship to do that. We have the lounge, that's below deck, an area where we also have food. And in the deck house, that's up on the deck, you have a nice view outside and you can still chill and order a drink or, yeah, so that's basically the common spaces that we have on board. Then we get, as I said, the galley is important, the cook system are important, the meals on board. All meals are inclusive for the trip. We have a meal 3 times a day. Breakfast and lunch are served in buffet style. And for the evening meals, you get a plate. You don't get to choose from a menu, but you can choose if you want vegetarian food or non-vegetarian food. That's basically the option. And we would like to know in advance if you want to eat vegetarian, yes or no. For some understanding, sometimes we make a trip of 5 or 6 weeks and we need to store food for that whole time, because there's no supermarkets on the way. So therefore, also dietary questions and everything we would like to know in advance so the cooks can buy everything they need for that. We have freshly baked bread every day. I mentioned it already. The deckhands bake that usually. There is unlimited coffee, tea, and water. The water on board is drinkable, and we have plenty of it. We make it ourselves. We also use it to shower. But yeah, be a bit, yeah, don't waste it, I wanted to say, because it's very good drinking water. And what is not inclusive, let me think, is the sodas and alcoholic beverages, but everything else is within the package. Then here you can see how it works, a quick view on a lunch or a breakfast and how people are cozy eating together. Then a very important thing, offline sailing. If we cast off our lines from the departure town, we also cast off the connection for you guys with the internet. And we love to keep it that way. We want to offer an experience that is different than most of the experiences. And you can call it a digital detox, but not having the internet around might be really adding to the experience. It is possible on board to write emails to your family, to your loved ones, to your friends. We have a system for that. It's for free. You can't send any attachments, text only. But in cases of emergency, you'll be always able to reach out to your emergency contacts. So that might be really good to know. Then the safety on board, because I kind of guess that many of you saw the beautiful footage online the last 2 weeks or the last week of Europa riding the waves. Really amazing. And you might get the idea, wow, that's super rough and it might be potentially dangerous. I wasn't on board, but I looked at the ship and I looked at the amount of sails and I actually thought, that must have been beautiful sailing weather. Although it looks like a rough storm, I don't think it was. I want to tell you a bit on the safety on board. First of all, we sail with experienced crew. So to Antarctica, we don't take any volunteers. We take only the people that know what they're doing. Then we have a lot of safety protocols. Every trip we start with safety briefings. There's multiple, but we want to make sure that you really know what to expect, what to do, what not to do. So we're quite thorough on teaching you that in the beginning of the trip, and we repeat it throughout. Then we have daily briefings. The captain will update you at least once a day on weather conditions, what to be expected. The expedition leader will update you every day on all other important things they are. And for everything else, we basically have a protocol. So the weather you saw in the movie, for that weather, some people might wonder, yeah, can't I fall overboard, for example? Well, the answer is no. If you follow what we say, no. In this picture behind the text, you see that we put up nets. You can see a lot of lines on the deck, for example. In bad weather conditions or in conditions that we think you should, we make you wear a harness. You need to be clipped on all the time. We keep an eye on you. So yeah, we do everything to make it look sporty, but not being dangerous. And of course, it's the last in the list, we monitor the weather constantly. Yeah, we sail in a rough area, but we're no storm chasers. So bad weather might happen, but we try to avoid everything that's not good for the ship. Yeah, I told a bit now what you can expect from us. And what do we expect from you? Well, no sailing experience. But what we kind of do expect is a lot of enthusiasm and an active will to participate. That would be awesome if you join. And yeah, what are we doing with the participation? Sorry. We put everybody on board in the watch system. We have a different watch system for our permanent crew and the voyage crew. So as the voyage crew, you will be in watches from 4 hours on, 8 hours off. And if you're on watch, you'll learn how to steer the ship. You'll be on the lookout and you will actively join in with sail handling. So that are the 3 basic things that we really would like your help with when you sail with us. And then once we come to Antarctica, we also realize that it might be good to have all the rest at night and proper nights to be able to to enjoy the landings. So once we have arrived, we'll get you out of the watch system, and we will keep on sailing the ship, often under engine, but with the permanent crew, and bring you from A to B. And then how does that watch system work? Because you might think, yeah, 4 on, 8 off. Will I end up always in the midnight shift, for example? The answer is no. We rotate for these shorter trips, like a Drake crossing. For the shorter trips, we rotate the watches on a daily basis. So one crossing, you will see various moments of the day, and we hope by there that you get to enjoy as much of the different situations that we can offer you. And then a beautiful topic, climbing the mast. First of all, I can really recommend it because I love heights and I love to climb and the view is incredible, but it's not compulsory. So you don't have to. If you want to, you're free to join. But one disclaimer, before you can start climbing, we will do a fitness test with you. So you will have to be able to either pull yourself up or hold yourself hanging for at least 30 seconds. I tell it already. And you have to pass that test because otherwise you cannot climb. So if you think about joining and you're not sure if you make that, there's still plenty of time to start working out for it, maybe. It's worth it. Yeah, and then last but not least, a little bit on the routes that we sail, because there is a few options for the Antarctic routes. Here you can see a little overview or a big worldwide overview of the trips that we sailed since the ship started sailing in 94. The only part is missing for those of you who know Europa for longer is the Pacific part. We might have to draw that in this. But further, we almost went everywhere we can go. But for now, we'll focus a bit on the Antarctic expeditions that we do. What you see here is a typical Peninsula expedition. There usually we start from Ushuaia, we cross the Drake Passage, we sail down to the South Shetland Islands, do some visits there. Then, wind and weather depending, we'll sail on more south, hopefully even till 64, 65 degrees south. It's always ice and wind depending. And then after having seen everything nice, we'll come back up, cross the Drake and end up in Ushuaia again. And then every 2 years, roundabout, we have a different kind of expedition. It's called a Cape to Cape. You might have heard of it. Cape to Cape is from, because the trip is basically from Cape Horn to Cape Good Hope. We start in Ushuaia, sail this time down to the eastern part of the peninsula. So the shorter trips, usually we visit the western part. Here we go to the eastern part, to the Weddell Sea, if we can go in because of ice conditions. And then from the Weddell, we'll sail on to South Georgia, visit the beautiful island of South Georgia, and from there on make our way to Africa. And if we're lucky, we'll be able to visit Tristan da Cunha. But that's always a surprise if we make it, yes or no. And then we have one more Antarctica trip that is not common, but if we sail it, it's usually in the beginning of the season. And here you see an example. Sometimes we start from Montevideo, the Montevideo area. Anyway, we always go to South Georgia and Antarctica. And sometimes we also visit the Falklands. Every destination is beautiful, but it's a little bit, yeah, from the year, depending where we want to go. And then the last slide, for me at least, it's the famous Drake Passage. I think you might have heard of it. It's known as the roughest water on the planet. Usually when we cross her, we have a 3 to 5 day crossing, but it's not always rough because it's just a stretch of water like the North Sea or like the Atlantic. There's a bit more chance on bad weather. Then we call it a Drake Shake because the whole ship moves. But it also can be a Drake Lake. And actually my last trip back up north, the water was even oily, filmy because of the no wind condition. In any condition and whatever the Drake looks, it's beautiful and it's part of the adventure. So yeah, I hope to see you out there.
Lovely. Thank you, Janka. So hello, I am Beth, and as I said, the expedition leader on some of the trips down to Antarctica. So I want to share with you the experience of when we arrive, when we get down to Antarctica. Now, of course, it's a real privilege to sail the Drake Passage. This is something that is already creating the teams. When you're crossing the Drake, you are getting into your watches and building yourself up the excitement for when you arrive. Before you arrive, you may even start seeing some ice once you've crossed the convergence and you arrive down in Antarctica. And I'm just back actually from last week from the last Antarctic trip, and wow, it was spectacular, our arrival on that one. We came in through McFarland Strait between the South Shetland Islands, and you start to see all these pinnacles coming out of the water, craggy rocks and the ice, and it's really can be really spectacular. Yeah, whatever weather you have, sometimes really wild like a big washing machine that you're in, and other times really calm and silent and beautiful. Yeah, so you arrive, you come down into the islands. Usually the South Shetland Islands is where we start, and you're seeing all these beautiful landscapes. And this is something special on Europa, because the feeling of having sailed the Drake together, you have a real feeling that you've earned it, that you're proud to have made it there. It's spectacular. The scale of it all is wonderful. Yeah. So what do we do when we get there? Well, hopefully you've had your watches and then a good sleep before you arrive in Antarctica. And then we will begin with our activities. So in the morning, we will have our breakfast, usually from 7 till 8. And then after breakfast, we all meet upstairs in the deck house. Or on deck if it's dry, nice enough to do that. And we will talk through the first activity of the morning. So this could be landings, zodiac cruises, where we go out in the small rubber boats, but we don't go ashore. We look from the boats. Sometimes we stay on board and we're observing wildlife watching, or going through a passage, or even sailing sometimes if we're lucky, down between the islands in Antarctica. But for all of this, we will be giving briefings in the deck house, and as we go, talking out on deck about what we're seeing and everything as well. Yeah. So the next slide, we will start looking at the landings. So usually we get the chance to go ashore possibly 10 or so times in a trip, and there will always be something on in the morning or the afternoon. So we will have the briefing on the ship, where often I draw a little sketch of the landing site. We talk a little bit about what's the terrain going to be like, how far you're going to go. And this could be anything from not usually more than a couple of kilometers. It's never a really long hike, but you are having to walk somewhere. It's not just getting ashore and observing from the beach. And then you have the chance sometimes to walk up to a viewpoint. There's some places, particularly in the South Shetland Islands, where you get more of a walk. But when we get down to the peninsula, the walks can be a little bit shorter sometimes, because it's so glaciated that you can't go up on the steep mountainous terrain. So it's a little bit shorter walks there, and watching the wildlife, or the penguin hilarity at the beach. And yeah, so we talk through the landing site. There's some rules about how we can take care of the environment when we're ashore, and some specific areas that we know if there's some nesting birds, we have to keep clear from that, or some historic sites, then there might be some information we give on this as well, to make sure you know the importance of the place, the value, and what we're really going to see before we get ashore. Yeah. Sometimes we get to do a bit of a hike. So I spoke about in the South Shetland Islands, there's often the opportunity to go a bit further. And the terrain, as you can see in this picture, we have sometimes rocky terrain that you're going along. This looks like Jugla Point, where you get a little bit of a walk up a hill, and a view looking out across the glaciers, and sometimes a historic hut, or even this season we had a few sightings of humpback whales passing by. You see the blow from the landing. It's really beautiful. Yeah, so that's what the walks look like ashore, the hikes. Occasionally we also do the zodiac cruises, and on Europa we have beautiful little boats, sloopy, that we also get out. You can see it in the picture here, the one on the right, and then 2 rubber boats, and we get to go and look at the environment from the smaller boats, which is a really nice chance to have a small group, a little intimate zodiac full of about between 5 and 10 10 of you. And you can see here we're at Scontorp Cove and going to look at the glacier front, keeping our safe distance, of course. And all the ice around the boats, the crackling of it as well. This you really feel in amongst it. And many people, this is a real highlight for them as well, I would say. The Zodiac cruises can be really beautiful. Yeah. And then sometimes as well, the nice part about Europa is the ship is small. You're going in with a smaller group of people, and you feel really in amongst the environment once you're on board. So this is at the northern end of Le Maire Channel, this cool passage we get to go through on Europa, and you have the mountains all around you, but you're also, the main deck is quite low to the water, so a lot of people love it for the photography as well, and the chance to have unlimited tea and coffee and warm up in the deck house between being out and watching everything. There's always stuff going on, and what I love is when you see people who really have such a passion to just see it all. They wrap up in all their layers, and from 5 in the morning till 10 at night they're out on deck just watching because they're the people who see the most, and that's what it's beautiful to do. Yeah. This is another landing where we get to see lots of wildlife often, and lots of penguin colonies where we're going, different species of penguin as we move further south. You're getting to see the chin straps, the gentoos, the delis further south, and they all have slightly different behaviors. And this also is a big impact on the time of year that you go. The penguins will be at a slightly different phase in their breeding cycle. So early season, we've got them coming ashore in November time. December, they're sitting on their eggs, incubating their eggs, alternating between the male and the female, and then January, usually this year was quite early though, they're starting to hatch already, got the young fluffy chicks, and then moving later in the season, getting the big chicks and starting to fledge in usually February, March time. Yeah, so that's a little bit about what you will see at different times of the year, but it does vary quite a bit depending on the snowpack. Then the wildlife observing from the ship as well. What a spectacular picture this one is. This year we had some amazing whale sightings from the ship, and that you can't beat. So the photos, of course, with the ship and the wildlife are incredible. And yeah, all being there together, getting excited about it is just fantastic. Yeah, so doing this from Europa is amazing. The later season is usually when we get our better whale sightings, when they've had all their feeding down there, and now it's time to play. Ashore as well, we get lots of seals. This is a fur seal here, and generally more of the seals in the later season. They're hauled out on the landing sites where we go. We have to work our way around them. This can also be something that limits where we can go. Is all the seals hauled out on the beaches, Weddell seals and fur seals, and sometimes the different species, some of them will stick more to the ice as well. So if you're lucky, you'll see a leopard seal on the icebergs, which can be spectacular. Of course, it's a fantastic opportunity for the photography. We also do some citizen science projects. So this is a picture here of the fluke of a whale, a humpback whale, and we submit these to do some science to monitor the different whales. And this can be nice to get information while we're still on board of where the whale that you saw might have been sighted before. We had some that were known from Ecuador, actually, the Ecuador coast, and we sent them in from the last trip, and they'd already been photographs sent in from Ecuador. I think it was 5 years ago. Yeah, so that's pretty special when you get to see that. As Janka said, usually every couple of years we will do these Scotia Arc trips or the Cape to Cape. We didn't do it this year, but next year there will be a trip also to South Georgia. South Georgia is a spectacular place, also a highlight for many, with these massive colonies of the king penguins here. A little bit of a different landscape from Antarctica. It's still south of the Antarctic convergence, so very cold environment, but you have more of these kind of foothills and these big open floodplains where the thousands and thousands of king penguins, all you can hear them humming together, and that's an amazing feeling to look at them, to be in amongst it. And what's nice is to be on these smaller groups on Europa where you can have a silent moment and just look out. It's really wonderful. And all the while on board we will be doing these briefings before we go ashore, so you're learning about the places as we go. And then on the land we will also mainly walk in little groups. We have usually it's myself and then 2 guides all together. We will split into a few different groups, and then in your group you can talk. The guide will tell you a little bit about the places, the wildlife, and give moments to just stop and look and enjoy. Yeah, it's a spectacular place. Yeah. Another big part of this journey is we can tell you a plan on what we hope to do, but of course that's never going to happen. We leave Ushuaia and hopefully we come back to Ushuaia. That part works out very well usually, but what we do in the middle can be very different, and that is different from trip to trip. We make a plan earlier on before the trips where we hope to go to certain places, and we want to make sure you get to see the different types of penguins and stuff. But when we're there, the plan is changing all the time. The weather, sometimes you can't get ashore, the swell is too much from the wrong direction, or the wind is picked up and you can't get ashore there. Sometimes, like I said, the wildlife, there's too much wildlife and that limits where you can get ashore. And also the recent thing, which we'll come to later, about the avian flu also being an impact, which luckily we haven't had any problems with now. None of the landings have been closed from avian flu this year, so we've been lucky with that. But for sure the weather in Antarctica is something we have to handle, and throughout the journey you will have changes to the plans, but what we end up doing is always the best thing given the conditions that we have. Yeah, and this can also give great opportunities for different things as well. As the weather is changing, you can see it in the stormy weather and the beautiful weather as well. Yeah, and get the chance to go ashore. And this is in South Georgia. You see the ship behind. That's always a beautiful moment, stepping onto the land after you have sailed across the Drake or across the Scotia Sea, and then you're seeing the ship from the outside for the first time. Yeah, so it's beautiful. On what to pack. Well, the packing, there is good information on the website, the community page, about what to pack, but I will tell you a little bit about what I pack when I'm going. So pretty small, keep it simple, because you don't have loads of space on board. Definitely lots of wool. You can see us all probably wearing wool, because this, even if it's wet, stays warm. And is very cozy to wear. So always a wool base layer, wool jumpers, and then on our feet. So I want to show you a pair of dirty, but you cannot take dirty shoes, you should take cleaned ones. But I think you can see here that the gaps on your boots should be not narrow, because if they are narrow, then they collect the dirt. And one big part of Antarctica is we have to be biosecure, totally clean. So you have to get a paperclip and clean it all. So you imagine you're picking a boot that's going to be easy to keep very clean. Also the height, you want a good height of boot, because in a later slide you will see that we're going to be getting in and out of the zodiacs. So everything you want to be ready for any weather when we're on board. Yeah. You will get used to that on the Drake Passage, and then when you arrive in Antarctica, you will know what to pack. So we have we did the boots, the gloves. If you're also taking the rubber gloves, like workman's gloves, but with a lining on the inside, this is a really good system for the gloves. Plenty of warm jackets, down or synthetic, so that if it's wet, it doesn't matter. And then your outer layer, the important one, your sailing stuff. So I have here some sailing pants. These are Musto. You've got all your big sailing brands like Gill and Musto and Helly Hansen, who do great outer layers for your trousers and your jacket. You can also, another thing that a lot of the crew do is they will use like rubber fisherman's oilies and then layer up underneath. So the rubber clothes are good for waterproof, but when you're ashore, they're not so good if you're hiking, because you want it to be a little bit breathable. But they're great on the Drake, yeah. And the gloves as well, plenty of hats. On to the boots. So yeah, as you can see in the picture here, this is Muck Boots. They're a very good company, and they do versions of boots that have quite a wide gap, so you're not getting too much dirt collected up in there. You want it to be knee high, so you're going to be stepping in and out of the small boats into shallow water. And then you also want some other shoes for when you're on board. When you come back from the landing, you will change into some trainers or something with closed toe is better. But make sure they have a decent sole on them. And that would be best for that. The next slide, you see them getting into and out of the boat. So this is in a place called Whalers Bay on Deception Island. And you see there, you're going to want to wade out a little bit. So you're going to need to have a bit of height in your boots. So make sure it's proper high boots. And sometimes you're in relatively deep snow, especially if you go early season. So then it helps to have your high boots on. Also some Velcro around the bottom to hold it tight to your boots so the water doesn't overtop your boots is also nice. But any Velcro must be totally cleaned before we go to Antarctica. So make sure you clean everything as if it was brand new before you get on board, because otherwise you have to do it on the night shifts, on the rolling ship. Yeah. Okay. Washing on board. So usually we aim for, on the shorter Antarctic trips, one opportunity to have your clothes washed, and that will be done and returned to you. And wool stuff we can do as well and give you back it wet so you can hang it up. Yeah, that's how that works on board. And we are a member of IAATO, the International Association of Antarctic Tour Operators, which has been around since 1991. And this is a way in which all of us vessels working down in Antarctica work together so that we can preserve the environment for future travelers to Antarctica. And it's also a safety network as well, because there's so many of us ships down there these days that we want to preserve it and make sure that when we also arrive at the landing site, it's in a nice condition. So looking after the wildlife and the environment and maintaining this pristine environment, which is what Antarctica needs to make it so special. The bird flu, so this is something that probably a lot of you have heard of, especially as in Europe, that's had a very big impact. And down South America, there have been issues past seasons, but now it's been pretty steady and we haven't had closed sites this season. So things are looking good. Because of the avian flu potential risk, we are having new measures. So we are not going to be sitting or kneeling or touching the ground at all when we're in Antarctica. So this is something to bear in mind, especially you photographers. I know you like to lie down. What to expect? Well, as I spoke about, the plan is always changing. You need to come with an open mind. And as I said before, the people who just stand out on deck and soak it all in. Yeah, that is the best way to go. Just enjoy. There's so much to get involved with on board if that's what you choose to do. And on Bark Europa, why would you do it? Well, I think having come back from the last trip, I'm still in that fantastic phase of just loving all the memories of it. And it's just so special how the Drake Passage gives you this bonding experience, the seasickness. It's all part of it. Many people get a little bit seasick and stuff. But yeah, just the community feeling, the smaller group that you have on Europa, and you really feel like a team after that Drake Passage. It is incredible, and being able to view it from this beautiful ship with the beautiful photographs on it. Yeah. And back over to Nina.
Thanks so much, Beth and Janke. Well, if this hasn't piqued your interest, I don't know what will. I'll quickly move over to the logistical side of things. Because are you ready to sail? Good health and good strength are important for these very remote and long voyages. Because we're very far away from land, we do rely on each other to keep Europa sailing, and we only have limited medical options available. And because of this, a good level of English is required to understand all safety instructions, but also each other, and to be able to follow all the safety instructions in all circumstances. Being able to swim is therefore also a requirement. On all our voyages, we have an upper age limit of 72 years old. And in addition, we ask our sailors above the age of 65 to send in an additional health statement signed by your general practitioner. Sailing a ship like Europa is a physical, hands-on experience that requires a certain level of fitness. Life on board is active from the moment you wake up, and perhaps even in your bunkie if the ship is heeling. The ship can be heeling at a certain angle. You'll be moving through narrow corridors. You'll have to climb in and out of your bunk. And to participate in the sailing, you need your strength in your arms to pull the ropes. You need to be able to stand on steady legs, to balance on a slippery deck, a moving deck, a heeling deck. We aren't just passengers here. We're a community working together. And those physical engagements, that doesn't end when we arrive in Antarctica. For every landing, you'll need to climb down the side of the ship on a rope ladder into the zodiac. And once we reach the shore, you'll be stepping onto a rock terrain to start your hike. And these hikes can be steep, they can be snowy, they can be slippery. But because of this, we ask our guests to have a good upper body strength, solid balance and leg strength, and also in general, a good condition. And because of this, safety is our #1 priority, and therefore our application process is thorough. But it doesn't mean that it's not feasible. Everyone can train for this. And that's what we also suggest doing. Make sure that you're at your best health and strength before you start the voyage, to start exercising in advance. Perhaps even take Pilates classes for balance. It's good to get on board well rested and healthy, and take your time while traveling south to Ushuaia, and just enjoy the local surroundings there before you join the ship. So next season, we have 4 Antarctic Peninsula voyages with a small difference in 20 or 21 days. It gives you just an option in budget, but also a little bit in timing of your voyage. All these voyages depart from Ushuaia, go to the Antarctic Peninsula, and return to Ushuaia, which is the south of Argentina. And we end the season with the longer expedition of 50 plus days from Ushuaia to Antarctica, South Georgia, hopefully Tristan da Cunha, and onwards. And this last voyage will be open in a few weeks. On all these voyages, we have limited spots available. And due to the nature and length of the trips, we only take up to 42 guests on board. The two-person cabins are all fully booked, but on the shared cabins, we still have availability. And we do understand that deciding to join such a voyage will take some time. It will take some thinking on, you have to check with your work, with your home front. Are you able to leave for such a long time? And we therefore have the opportunity to ask for an optional reservation for 2 weeks. It's free of charge. Within these 2 weeks, you can turn to your reservation. You can turn your reservation into a booking. And if you haven't booked within these 2 weeks, we'll just lose the spot and give it to someone else. So once you're ready to book, you can submit your booking form. And we know it's thorough, we know it's long, but we appreciate that you take the time to fill it out. The more clear and comprehensive it is, the best image we get from you. And the sooner we can make a decision on the booking. And sometimes we will get back to you with some questions specifically about medication or dietary requests. And these questions and answers will be then checked either with our medical team or with our team of cooks to make sure that it's feasible on board. So what to expect once you have sent in your booking form? Well, the booking form will be checked manually. And once everything is okay, we will send the booking confirmation, the invoice, and some videos to prepare you for your trip. You can then choose to pay the voyage fee in full or in installments. The first one is 30% at the time of the booking. The second one is 50% 5 months before the voyage. And the last one is 20% of the voyage fee 2 months prior to embarkation. So you've received the booking confirmation, and then approximately 6 months before your voyage starts, we open the community page. And on this page, you'll find all the documents to prepare you for the voyage. The packing lists, but also a document to share with your loved ones at home to how they can get in touch with you on board. And also to get in touch with your fellow travelers who you'll be sharing the voyage with. And shortly before the trip, you'll also receive a small quiz to see if you have read all the documents and if you have prepared yourself well for the trip. And then it's time to sail. And if the cold might not be what you're looking for, perhaps, but you are interested in sailing with us, we do have some trips upcoming year. Which starts with the Chilean fjords, which will be our next voyage in March. And then we go up the coast of Chile to Peru, from Peru to the Galapagos, to Easter Island, to Tahiti, then to Cook Islands, and then to Tonga and Auckland, New Zealand. And we do have availability on all these voyages. So if you would love to try some warmer destinations, we do have availability for you. And after the next Antarctica season, which will be 26-27, we will turn back to Europe for some shorter summer voyages. All right, I think it's time for some Q&A questions. So Beth and Janke, if you can turn on your mic again, we can have a look what the top 5 questions are. Because we're a little bit short on time, so we'll have a look how much we can do. And if your questions have not been answered, we'll do so and send them afterwards together with the recording. Janke, how hard is this trip, sailing-wise and with regards to seasickness? And are there other trips more suited for first timers or recommendations to best prepare for this trip?
That's a good one. Um, it doesn't need to be hard, and you don't need to get seasick. That's really depending on a person. But if you've never sailed before, for example, and you're wondering, like, hey, I'm not sure how will I do on the ship, you could also either go with us on a more calm trip, so a more for example, a Pacific trip or an ocean crossing or a coastal trip. Or you can go on another ship and figure at least out how are you doing out in the open. So don't go on a lake where you only go for an hour when there's no wind, but maybe just try to push yourself a little bit on that. But as said, it does not really need to be hard. But yeah, my main recommendation is figure it out in advance if you want to know. If you don't want to know, then come along. Try to read in as much as possible, but also, as what Nina said, try to be as fit as possible if you come on board. That's always a good start.
All right.
Does it answer the question?
Perfect. Thanks. Beth, is there any possibility to connect with the outside world? Not meaning to be online all the time, but to be able to maybe send a text to family?
Yeah, we have an email system on board, and this is now free. You can use this, and you can send an email to home. They will receive it just as a normal email, but from an account on board, not from your Gmail account or whatever. Yeah, so there's definitely the opportunity to keep in contact if you want.
All right. And maybe last one for Janke, because it's already 5. Is there an evacuation procedure in place in case somebody gets seriously ill? Is there
Yeah.
a possibility to leave if there's an emergency?
Again, a good question. It depends on where we are. That's why we also ask to be your fittest self when you come on board, and that's why we ask a lot of questions about the health of people booking. Yes, we have procedures for evacuation or medical procedures, but you have to be aware that at a certain stage, especially at, for example, a Cape to Cape, we can be 1,000 miles offshore, and that's out of helicopter reach, for example. So often there's other ships around that could maybe assist us, but if it's really bad weather, maybe also not. So yeah, we have our procedures. We'll try to do everything once it's necessary. But yeah, for me, myself, I really like to focus on preventing illness and all kinds of stuff. And of course, you can become sick, and then we'll do everything to get you as soon somewhere as possible. But there's never a guarantee. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks so much. I see there are many, many more questions asked about photography and allergies and many other things, which we'll answer all in via email to make sure that all questions are being answered. But I would say like to thank you, Janke and Beth, both for your presentations. And thank you all for watching the webinar and for sending in these good questions. We hope many of your questions are being answered in the chat, and those questions that have not been answered will be via email. And for those who have not booked a voyage with us yet, we look forward to keep in touch with you over the upcoming period. You're more than welcome to send in an email. Yeah, we can't wait to welcome you on board. Fair winds and following seas.
Yeah, hope to see you soon. And some of you I will see soon. So till Ushuaia in March.
Yeah, yeah. Safe travels when you do come down and come on Europa. It would be lovely.
Nice.